Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 147 of the It's the Pictures podcast. My name is John Gilpatrick, and joining me, as always, is
Max Colville.
How are you today, Max? It's been a little while since we've been on the record here.
Yeah, I took over hosting duties last time with a wonderful guest, but I'm glad that you're back, John. And it's fun talking with you.
Happy to be back. Happy that you got to connect with Kristen Lopez in my absence last time. People should go check that out if you haven't yet. And I'm happy to say that we have another wonderful guest joining us tonight to talk Oscars and all things Michelle Yeoh from Letterboxd, senior editor and podcast host. It's Michelle Beaupre. Mitchell, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, both of you.
Thanks so much for joining us. We are going to, as I mentioned, talk Oscars. The ceremony was just a couple nights ago for us now, recording here tonight. And the reigning now Best Lead Actress winner, Michelle Yeoh, and some of the great films of her very interesting and storied career. We'll dive into that a little bit. We'll give you some recommendations on what we've been watching. Okay, so I would say Academy Awards, the 95th? Okay, 95th, yeah. Definitely not as controversial or sort of naturally water coolery, if you will, as last year's were. But I thought it was kind of nice to it felt like very normal, if you want to call it that, just ran through the categories, some mildly funny jokes, some lame jokes, a few musical numbers, and everybody's gone home 45 minutes later than they promised. Mitchell, what's sort of your big, and we'll get into the winners and some of the things, but just from the overall big picture ceremony standpoint, what are some of your takeaways or general impressions?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it definitely feels a little like bringing in Billy Crystal to host after the James Franco Anne Hathaway year kind of vibe. Sure. Of resetting, just everybody playing it safe, for the most part. The Robert Blake joke was the only real spicy kind of joke there. It was mostly just sort of softballs down the middle, and I think it was pleasant. I'm somebody who's been a little bit I guess fatigued by award season as I've gotten older, and as the award season has gotten longer and longer. Yeah, totally. And you get kind of into the minutia of it a little bit, and it sort of loses its luster a little. But it felt a little bit like watching it, when I was a teen, and just getting to enjoy more or less the glamour of it without it getting too complicated. I had a nice time with it.
Yeah. I think it is interesting. You mentioned, kind of the kind of back to status quo, I guess, if you will, when they did this Billy Crystal thing in 2012, I think it was. It's even it felt more traditional and, if you will, I guess, safer than the previous times Jimmy Kimmel hosted, where they did more elaborate kind of set pieces and going to a theater to surprise random people with popcorn, right. all these kind of bigger skits almost, if you will. And this one, the biggest sort of skit, if you will, that he did is the parachute in the beginning from Top Gun, which wasn't that outlandish or off kind of what's familiar, I think, for a long history of the Academy Awards. So definitely, hits home how I think safe and familiar they wanted this to be. Max, big picture impressions for you?
Yeah, I was pretty satisfied with the direction of the show. I thought that they went through most of the categories pretty quickly. I think maybe only one or two people who you thought really wanted to get to the mic to say something got rushed off the stage, which
it's always
is always a bummer.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what people were waiting for with the big winners and listening to their speeches, I think a lot of them were successful. And as far as the speeches from those winners, and resonated with people, as opposed to some other speeches or could have not been as exciting or it's funny because sometimes you watch and like Mitchell said, that these people have been through the whole award circuit themselves, so going to award dinners all over the world, and you can imagine that there's got to be like some kind of fatigue anyways for these things. But the winners still seemed pretty darn surprised and honored to receive this great award, and that was pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I looked at mentioning sort of the big awards, and the 4 acting categories jump out. Obviously, 3 of them went to members of the cast of Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then you can throw Brendan Fraser on top for Best Actor for The Whale. Seeing they do the picture every year of the 4 acting winners. Hopefully it's 4. Obviously a few cases there have been fewer than that in the photo. Holding their statues and stuff. And it sort of struck me seeing that as just like, is this the unlikeliest sort of set of 4 winners that we've ever had in terms of, just the arc of their careers and all kind of coming together at that one moment. Sometimes you have an outlier, but usually there's a Daniel Day-Lewis or a Meryl Streep or a Cate Blanchett in the mix to kind of, make it feel more like, oh yeah, that makes sense that person's holding that thing on that night. But this one just felt like you had Jamie Lee Curtis, who obviously is like a child of Hollywood royalty, but still, was in genre pictures for most of her career. And it was almost weird. Like my wife was watching with me. She's like, oh, she probably has one of these awards already before. I was like, she's never been nominated before. She couldn't believe that. And then obviously Ki Hye Kwan, and his story has been well told over the last, 9 months since this movie came out, and the arc of his career. Brendan Fraser, the same thing. Now, I mean, going on, I feel like probably 2 years we've been talking about his career arc. And then Michelle Yeoh, who we're going to talk a lot about later. But having all of them win this award, any one of them winning the award would be like kind of a remarkable story. And having all 4 of them win their awards on the same night, and having them all in that picture together was, to me, the highlight of this year in movies, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that I can't remember what the exact number was, but since like the 50s, there's only been like a few times that all 4 of the winners were first-time nominees, which I think is pretty substantial and really cool to see. Like going through the whole year, especially like the award season, you lose a little bit of that sight of like all 4 of these people have never even been nominated for an Oscar, because even seeing them pick up various awards or whatever, it kind of feels a little bit old hat. But then when you see that picture and you think about it, it's really impressive. It's really cool to see. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of like genuine emotion coming off of them when they give those speeches and they win those awards. And that's really, beautiful to see people that aren't fatigued by the whole bluster of it all.
I think one of the other things that stood out, just kind of along the same lines, was Stephanie Hsu, who was the 4th nominated Everything Everywhere All at Once cast member who didn't win. She was up against Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, and her being so emotional and I think really happy for her co-stars just really like moved me. And I thought that was really nice, cutting to her every time one of her co-stars or her directors won or something. It was obviously very emotional for her. And I've talked on the podcast, like I'm not the biggest Everything Everywhere All at Once fan, but I was rooting for it in a weird way. Best Picture felt like a foregone conclusion, but the cast was so wonderful, and that to me was the best part of the movie. So just seeing how invested they were all, I think, in each other's success was really awesome. On the night, the movie won 7 awards, Max. Do we know? I mean, it's a short list of movies that have won that many Oscars in a single year, right?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, easily the one that comes to mind right away is Return of the King, because that one won so many awards as well.
Yeah, I think Slumdog Millionaire won a ton that year.
Yeah, I think it's the most that a Best Picture has won since Slumdog. I think Gravity won like 7 in like 2013, wow, but obviously didn't win Picture.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely since Slumdog, it's the most that a Best Picture. Because yeah, they've been doing the thing for a while now where they try to spread the wealth around like the Best Picture winners and try to get like everything to get at least one or whatever. And so it is. I mean, it is really cool to see a movie just have such an impact that it does pretty big sweep like that. I mean, 3 of the 4 acting categories. There's only what Network and A Streetcar Named Desire are the only other 2 movies that have won 3 of the acting awards, and neither of those won Best Picture.
Wow. So it is,
pretty...
a historic movie in a lot of ways, and for both for what it won, but also I think what it says about this movie winning at this time, and that it was obviously a really important movie for Asian representation, and for A24, and for just
certainly for A24,
the list of kind of, I think, notable milestones that this kind of checks off. So that for that reason, I was rooting for it. My favorite movie of the year was Top Gun Maverick, and I'm like, obviously I knew it wasn't going to win, but I'm like, that movie won enough when it made $1.5 billion and quote unquote saved the movie industry.
Yeah, Tom Cruise didn't even show up. How's it gonna win when Tom Cruise?
I know, right? They kept cutting to Jennifer Connelly as like the token member of the.
Oh my god, that was pretty funny. Every time somebody said Top Gun Maverick, and cut to Jennifer Connelly, a little awkward.
They tried Miles Teller for a little bit. But...
Oh yeah, they had Teller and the rest of the cast like up in the rafters.
Yeah. Right. The other movie that kind of won the second most awards was All Quiet on the Western Front, and every year this happens. There's a moment where they're running through the craft and technical categories, and people start tweeting or texting or chatting wherever however you're engaging with the show, is like, is this gonna win Best Picture now? Like clockwork. It was Mad Max Fury Road, and it was you could go down the list of all the movies that like won 3 or 4 technical awards in a row, and then everybody starts looking around like, but yeah, it won 4. Mostly a craft. It won foreign language feature as well. Did not win screenplay, which I kind of thought it was going to win. I guess you could say that was one of the bigger upsets of the night, to Women Talking, which is a delight. Max, All Quiet on the Western Front, like, what's with 4 awards, none like not winning Best Picture, obviously, like, what's this movie's kind of legacy in terms of the Oscars this year?
Well, I think that it's still going to hold up pretty well. The BAFTAs were like over the moon for it, and gave it plenty of awards, I think, including Best Film. So I think that it's still held in pretty high esteem. I think that Netflix will certainly be happy with all the mentions, and the Oscar-winning score drumming in everybody's heads for about an hour and a half during that broadcast. Because that score is a lot. I mean, I like that when I saw the movie. I think it's effective. I was kind of surprised it won over Babylon. I figured that would be the only one that would have the chance to beat it. It's an effective score.
It's a score that works in the context of the movie, I think, pretty well, but in an Oscar ceremony, it felt a little like I was on a chalkboard. Mitchell, did you feel similarly?
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, so like it was my first time really hearing the score, and it
probably was like shocking.
It felt a little out of place, but yeah, in terms of its legacy, what you asked Max about, I think that not winning Best Picture is the best thing for this movie's legacy. I think that winning, a bunch of tech categories is a good sign for it. If it had won Best Picture, like, it would have been really tarnished by like people kind of having that backlash of like, how did this beat Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Tar and Banshees and et cetera. But yeah, getting the tech stuff was good for it. I think it's the most Oscars that any Netflix movie has won, so I'm sure that they're pretty happy about that, to finally start making some more moves. But I'm sure maybe they were hoping to finally get that Best Picture, but not quite.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. It would have gotten dragged through the mud for sure. And if you see the movie, you'll know there's plenty of mud in it. And Netflix will have to wait another year for another crack at Best Picture. Do they have anything like major coming? I forget, but
they might have
the David Fincher movie.
Yeah, they have Fincher. Do they have the Bradley Cooper. Is that
Maestro, that's
Yeah.
them.
Oh, Maestro.
Apparently
Yeah.
no
So
longer the Nancy Meyers movie, which just got like canned like an hour before we started
oh,
recording
did it?
this,
Oh
which is a shame.
no.
Yeah, they said that they're
Oh,
shutting it
that's
down because of the
horrible.
budget issues, apparently, which is a
Oh, no way. A
huge
Nancy
shame.
Meyers movie with a big budget? That is disappointing. Okay. Max, any other kind of like major highlights from Oscar night, things you wanted to mention? I know you're a big fashionista.
Am I?
No, I'm joking around. What else do you want to mention from the Oscars?
Who was best dressed, or should I say, like, the red carpet was not red this year, and it was awful, right? 'Cause, like, all the dresses clashed right into the carpet.
Yeah, some of them did, some of them did.
Yeah, I watched an hour before, John. You know, I talked to you. I saw some of the outfits, but no, I think like my highlight overall is that it was mostly pleasant celebration of the arts of movies. And although there were certainly lows that we're going to talk about, and maybe not necessarily a low, but yeah, when you have one film dominating, and maybe even you could call All Quiet's like tech run dominating, it kind of makes it so that other films don't get very much attention. And that might be the saddest thing, but it certainly can't be helped.
I think that's a good point. You know, it did feel like that there was a lot of movies this year that people loved that ended up kind of walking away empty-handed or close to it. Mitchell, is there anything that, like, you know, if you could go back and rewrite one of these categories yourself that, you know, you'd like to see happen?
I mean, I really do like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think the Jamie Lee Curtis win is pretty silly. I think the nomination itself is pretty silly. But her winning, I mean, you can't, like, I just feel like in 20 years, people are gonna like discover this movie for the first time and watch it knowing that she won an Oscar for it and be like, what, like, how did that happen? Like, especially when she's up against Stephanie Sue, who's like so good in it. And I mean, the rest of, like, I would have rather an Angela Bassett like career win, happen for Black Panther than the Jamie Lee Curtis one. So I feel like that's probably the biggest thing. Like, I wasn't huge. I like Tar and Banshees, but I wasn't huge on them. So I'm not like, beside myself that those and like the Fablemans didn't win anything. I was pretty happy with Everything Everywhere's like overall haul. But yeah, the Jamie Lee Curtis, I think I would trade in for any of the other nominees in that category probably.
Yeah, I loved Carrie Condon.
Yeah, she's really good.
You can't give her like a career award or anything like that, like you could Angela Bassett, which would have been awesome as well. But I thought just based off the performances of the 5 nominated actresses,
I think she's the individual performance wise. I think she's the best easily out of those 5.
Yeah, and I think that like there was I wasn't gonna rule it out going into the night because it did seem like that one was open, and Jamie Lee Curtis certainly had the momentum on her side from the SAG award, but I don't think that anybody expected that to be like like Best Picture was, which is just sort of a done deal going into the night. I was happy that Brendan Fraser won, like a really nice moment. Seems like a really good guy who's obviously been through a lot in his career. Nobody is a bigger fan of The Mummy than I am. We did an episode on The Mummy franchise, Max, a while ago, and we sung it that.
We could almost talk about. We could almost talk about Mummy 3 tonight, John, if you wanted
to. Everyone's favorite Mummy movie.
Yeah, exactly. But I was not like much of a fan of The Whale. And I love Colin Farrell, and I loved Banshees, and I really would have liked to see him win. Again, you can say like a sort of a career achievement award for, I think, giving a lot of really underrated performances over the last 20 years. But again, like I hate to begrudge any of these actors who just all seem like really nice people, to be honest with you. So, Max, how about you? Anything that if you could erase it and redo it, you'd like to see happen?
I liked all the winners of the people who won awards, but I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to my score and say that Babylon got robbed and Voodoo Mama is a bop, and that should have won score.
I was thinking of you when Women Talking One, because I know you are such a fan of that movie. And
yes,
I don't know
I was very happy.
That was a given. As I mentioned, I sort of assumed All Quiet on the Western Front was going to win. And I thought that would have been, with all due respect to that movie and its writers, a travesty, because that screenplay is a mess. But Sarah Polley is awesome, and I was really happy to see that. So that was really cool, and a movie that didn't have a ton of nominations. Got a Best Picture nomination, but didn't have a ton otherwise. And to win something like screenplay was notable.
But John, do you think, like, in a negative light, and I hate to bring negativity into this, but like I feel like a lot of times the Academy will award script to like the women directors, and like it's almost like, here's your like runner-up prize, and I don't know, that's just how I feel. I think like Sofia Coppola won that award for like Lost in Translation, and yeah, and like, so I just, it's an Oscar, yes, and but sometimes I still feel like it's almost like a runner-up prize.
I mean, I'd have to go back and see like what some of the kind of what some of those decisions have looked like over the years to like really comment on whether that's something they're consciously doing or appear to be doing subconsciously or consciously. But I think it's a fair point to raise. I think that I can go back to like, I know Get Out won. He won Best Original Screenplay, and was nominated for director and didn't get that in 2018. Just off the top of my head, I'm sure that
Jordan Peele.
Yeah, Jordan Peele, right? There's probably others, other examples somebody could point to. I do think it was a weird year where a lot of the movies that people loved the most were in Best Original Screenplay, and that Best Adapted Screenplay had some kind of, I guess you could say, funkier choices in terms of the screenplay. Either something like All Quiet, which I don't think was a well-written movie, and
did the Whale make it? I remember like that.
It did not. It did not get nominated.
All right, good.
No, All Quiet, Women Talking was in there. Obviously, won. Oh crap, I can't remember now. Glass Onion. Yeah, Glass Onion, which seemed like kind of a surprising choice with that movie not really popping anywhere else. Top Gun Maverick, which again, like, you're putting movies in this category now that are original screenplays, or excuse me, adapted in the sense that like they had movies that came before them, and aren't really thought of as highlights of great screenwriting, but they're movies that people liked, and had quote unquote adapted screenplays. So I think that's how you end up with that. But you look at the original category and just it's kind of heavy hitter after heavy hitter in terms of the 2022 movie slate. So it was a little bit strange in that respect. Any other Mitchell, any like besides, we talked about the actors, any other like speeches that you really enjoyed, or other moments that you kind of wanted to call out?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the speech for the live action short film An Irish Goodbye, where everybody just sang Happy
That was
Birthday.
awesome.
Yeah, I
to
love
the
that
one
stuff.
dude. Like that was a real joy, and that was like one of those moments that just felt, I mean, really nice, and like, a really cool, fun Oscar moment. I love the songwriters for RRR singing that Carpenter song as like this as his speech. That was really fun. I thought the performances were, other than like the Diane Warren one, which, like, I mean, come on, like, what are we doing at this point? But like, for the most part, like, I loved Gaga's performance. I thought Rihanna's was good. Not to obviously a banger as always. Like, I thought the song performances were really nice. I'm glad that they got them all in there, since it seemed like maybe for a while Gaga maybe wasn't going to do it, and then was able to do it. So yeah, I loved all the song performances.
Yeah, no,
I like David Byrne coming out the hot dog fingers.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, off the top of my head, I couldn't remember it. But David Byrne and hot dog fingers. Like, I mean, what else? What do you want? What more do you want from the Oscars than David Byrne and hot dog fingers?
They had a good lineup this year for sure, of songs that I think people either knew the artist or knew the song. And sometimes that's they have great ones, and sometimes they have lineups that they decide to do something different this year with the song category.
Yeah.
For
what
me,
about the
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
please.
No, you go ahead. I was gonna switch to a different thing on the Oscars.
No, go ahead. Yeah, please.
I was just gonna say, the in memoriam with like how many people how many big notable people they left off was kind of like, I mean, that's shocking to me.
Yeah,
how many people weren't on there.
That's definitely a low light, right, John?
So all full transparency, like I stepped away for like 10 minutes, and part of that was in memoriam, but I did get a lot of messages of people being like, how did they not include so and so? I didn't catch it. I haven't seen it since, but do either of you care to share a few that you felt like were notable omissions?
Yeah, I mean, Philip Baker Hall wasn't on there. Jean-Louis Trintignant wasn't on there. Fred Ward, Paul Sorvino. Like, it's like name after name after name. Like, people were just missing. Charles B. Dean from literally Triangle of Sadness, one of the best picture nominated movies, not on there.
Yeah, and I guess I found a list of some other ones, like Kevin Conroy, who was the voice actor for Batman. I guess like Gilbert Gottfried was one, or like Topol just passed away very recently.
Oh yeah, that was like probably a few days before.
Yeah.
Tom Sizemore not on there either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough.
And when you end it, when you like miss all those people, and then you end it with like a QR code, and you say scan the QR code to see the full in memoriam on our website, like that just feels like a spit in the face after you put somebody in the ground. That's brutal.
Yeah, so scan for more deaths is a retweet that I did.
That's brutal. The QR codes were weird. I didn't make use of them, so I can't really comment on.
I do wonder how many people were scanning those QR codes throughout the night.
It's like one of those things that like I think I've done twice in my entire life, and I'm always like, what am I doing? So watching the Oscars, I wasn't really going to engage in it that way, but whatever. There was one moment, Max, that I texted you after where I think the text probably just said, "This is all caps disgraceful." Do you recall what moment that was?
That was when Disney used their primetime spot to showcase the very ugly-looking Little Mermaid movie.
Well, I didn't say the movie looked very ugly, but
I'm saying
that's what you're saying. That's fine. Yeah, that really, really bothered me a lot. Was the and somebody calmed me down. Somebody else I texted that said this is disgraceful, and said they basically just led into a commercial break. It's not that big a deal, and I was like, okay, that's a fair point. But it still was egregious, I thought. Mitchell, any thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I tweeted angrily about it when it happened. I also like it. Your friend is right that it was basically just leading into a commercial break. Like we could have just seen that in a commercial, but like it still put such circumstance around it. And I wonder what it felt like in the room, because like you still had the two of them on stage, just like opening up an ad that I'm sure played on the screens in the auditorium. And it's just like, it feels like, I know that their contract's running up with ABC. The Oscars contract is running up with ABC. So like they probably had to, give them a little bone to try and make the renegotiations work for next year or whatever. But it felt very very transparent what was going on there.
Yeah, for sure. It was not subtle at all. And it was funny too, because then later on they did this sort of segment showcasing Warner Brothers, which I thought after the Disney commercial seemed kind of funny and confusing, but didn't bother me for whatever reason as much as the Little Mermaid one did. So yeah, that was bothersome. Max, any other lowlights I'm forgetting?
Yeah, I think Sarah Polley was like walking off stage to the Pirates of the Caribbean music.
Yes.
Really?
And yes, and I didn't notice that until I read somewhere, and I was just like, that is just a terrible idea to like showcase that when the winner of Women Talking just is leaving the stage.
Wow, that's a little strange. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. And then of course, John, the other moment was trying to make time for Rihanna's stage, I guess, and talking to Malala in the audience, and that was just really nasty.
Yeah, that was a little cringy for sure.
Yeah, that was right. Malala Land or whatever the hell he did. Like any bits on, a person of color's name is just like,
no better.
What? Like it's 2023. Like, what are we doing?
I feel like we do this cycle every year, and somehow they still forget.
Yeah.
It's kind of unbelievable. So yeah, that was not great, and otherwise, I think okay Jimmy Kimmel performance. I can't think of anything else that we haven't touched on, but I'm gonna pass it to both of you one more time. Mitchell, any other final thoughts on Oscars 2023?
I think we hit like most of the my main takeaways from it. I do want to say, we talked about them a bit, but I wanted to say too, like I gotta praise the Daniels for just like still having such enthusiasm for like these speeches. Like thinking about the fact that Everything Everywhere premiered, to rapturous acclaim over a year ago at South by Southwest, and they've been like doing the beat, promoting the movie, giving speeches and whatever for a year, and they still are super like humble and like super like appreciative and like genuinely seem really enthused and like shocked by like how the movie's been received. They just seem like whether or not people like the movie, or whether I know some people think that they're like a little cringy or whatever, but I feel like it's I mean, for me it's tough to dislike any of those people. And like you guys said, like just the enthusiasm around that whole cast and the support that they have for each other, like the whole cast and crew of that movie, like it's just really infectious, I think.
I did forget to mention in speeches we liked, the editor of the movie, I thought just seemed like a really nice guy. He was just like, I can't believe it, this is my second movie. And seemed like somehow like way calmer than most of the other people accepting awards that night. So I just want to shout out to you. Max, final thoughts?
Yeah, after the Oscars, I reminded my wife that the Daniels directed the music video for Turn Down for What as like one of their first jobs. And she's like, we watched it together on YouTube, and she's like, I could totally see like how Everything Everywhere All at Once was like their influence in this music video.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. It's just all over it. And it's just fun to see that those guys be successful. And I guess the whole Everything Everywhere All at Once group there having just the time of their lives and enjoying the whole thing. It was really nice to see.
Cool. All right, so I think that's going to be a wrap on the Oscars for 2023. Really kind of a final bow on the 2022 year in movies, which feels good and overdue here.
Yeah.
And looking forward to everything else that now 2023 is going to bring, and we'll do this all over again in a year. But let's talk a little bit more about the Best Actress winner of at the Oscars, Michelle Yeoh. And her, we'll call it kick-ass career here. Now, I am a little bit less familiar with that career than I think both of you are. So I'm going to kind of pass the MC duties a little bit over to Max here, and allow us to kind of walk everybody through it. But Michelle Yeoh, obviously a acclaimed actress, winning a Best Actress award, I think, was a crowning achievement, but certainly not her only one, right?
Yeah, sure. She's had quite a historic career, and it's amazing to like look at Everything Everywhere All at Once and see how much of that movie not only asks an actress to do a lot of different things, but how many of those things that Michelle Yeoh is asked to do is stuff that she has literally learned over the course of her lengthy career. She got her start in action and martial arts films, many of which that Mitchell and I will go through here, and are available right now on the Criterion channel via their Michelle Yeoh Kicks Ass channel, going on for a little while. So apparently, like, she did most of her own stunts when she was younger, and one of her with her third credit here listed is Yes Madam, and one of the films Mitchell watched, and she was given a main role. I think she's opposite Cynthia. Ooh,
Rothrock.
yeah, Rothrock. That's right. And she was a martial artist herself, and had quite a career in Hong Kong martial arts films. Um, so yeah, I think that's where we should start, because we have a little while to go. Mitchell, I've seen a little bit of Yes Madam. Certainly the great chase sequence at the beginning, but as the first movie in the Line of Duty series, um can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so Yes, Madam. Yeah, it stars the two of them, Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock, and the plot is, and I feel like this is the thing that I'm noticing with a lot of these movies in this collection, as like I'm sort of going through it, is the plot is one like kind of inconsequential, but also like you lose a lot of like sense of it. At least I do, like the kind of ins and outs of the plot. Like they're following these like two petty thieves who are like stealing from these jobs that they work as like cleaners or sort of, employees of that nature, and they accidentally steal something that is much more valuable than they're used to stealing. And basically there's this hunt for this like microfilm that they've stolen from this guy's passport. And so many good movies revolve around microfilm, I think.
Love
And
microfilms.
I mean, it's a lost art, the microfilm films. And it basically becomes, the Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock and the police are hunting the people who are hunting these petty thieves, and you follow that through. And I'll admit, like, the middle section kind of lost my attention a little bit because there's not as much action happening, and it gets like very into like the plotting of it all. And especially for being like her first big movie and being the first movie in the collection. And like I've always like this was my first time seeing Yes Madam. I had had it on my watch list forever because I like the poster just looks cool. I know people really like it, and she's not in it as much as you would expect. Like her and Cynthia Rothrock kind of take a back seat for like the middle of the movie, as a lot of the ins and outs of the plot are happening with all of the men kind of around it. But when they are on screen, it's like it's a hoot. The opening section is a blast with the chase scene that you mentioned, and then the final section is like the big climactic, like everybody's kicking and punching each other, and that's a blast too. And I would say is very easily worth watching, even for those two alone. I mean, it's a really good movie, and I really enjoyed it. But it's certainly so far like on the lesser side, I think, of the collection. I think that it's a good entry point though for this kind of thing. Like I'm glad that it was the first one that I watched, and I'm glad that it was, because it's like a good starting point, and then it kind of gets up from there. But there are some really kick-ass scenes. Cynthia Rothrock, what she can do with her legs, just how she kicks people in certain ways in this movie is out of control.
Yeah. I think there was a movie that she's in. The name of it is escaping me right now. That was just recently put out by like Vinegar Syndrome, and
Oh, New York Ninja or Righting Wrongs, I
yeah, that's
think.
it.
Yeah,
Righting
yeah, yeah.
Wrongs
They
that
put that
she's
out
in,
too.
and I think I've seen some of that, and that is also a pretty fantastic martial arts movie. That you should check out if you like her.
Directed by the same guy who directed Yes Madam,
Oh, all right.
Corey Yun or Corey Yoon, I think Yoon.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, Mitchell, but one of my kind of interactions with Yes Madam was this video that someone made where like they were syncing up the last fight scene of like Carly Rae Jepsen's Get to the Feeling. And it's just funny like seeing that action to that song. And
No, I gotta find that. Is that on YouTube?
Yeah, it might be on YouTube. I think I saw it in a tweet, but certainly I think that what made the interest for a lot of people to like want to check this out and just see like, oh, why haven't I never seen this movie before? And it must be really cool. But yeah, that was Michelle Yeoh's first big starring role. I'm following her Wikipedia here a little bit, and apparently after she starred in Yes, Madam, she kind of retired from acting in 1987, and for like maybe a period of 5 years until she came back, and she had this fantastic return with Police Story 3, Super Cop. And for me, I just saw Super Cop for the first time recently, and it being the third entry in the Police Story franchise, of course, made famous by Jackie Chan. The first Police Story is a fantastic Hong Kong action movie if you've never seen it. And like one of the things I like about watching Jackie Chan's movies is not only his physical humor, but also the way he will put his body through anything. And like similar to Tom Cruise today. But it's funny because Michelle Yeoh's asked very much the same thing, and one of the things you'll see in these action movies that Jackie Chan does, at least, is he'll almost put like the bloopers or outtakes over the ending credits, and you'll see like just like all the bad takes and dangerous stuff that they had going on. And I guess from reports they actually had like Michelle Yeoh like drive like a motorcycle onto a moving truck, and it's just like, that's crazy that they had her do that. But the movie itself is quite funny. I'm gonna assume that John's never seen Police Story 3 Super Cop.
I have not.
Mitchell, do you have a history of the Police Story series?
I've seen the first one, which I really enjoy, and I haven't gotten around to the second or the third one yet, but I want to. Like, I'm gonna go through. You and I were talking a little bit off mic. Like, I've made it through about half of the Michelle Yeoh collection so far, and I'm fully planning on finishing it. And I want to watch Police Story 2 before I watch the third one. But super stoked for it. I do really love the first one.
Yeah. So Kai Ku, who is the character Jackie Chan plays, is known as the titular super cop. He's like the guy that the bureau just asks to do all their most dangerous missions because they believe they can trust him the most. And in this movie, he's sent on special assignment, and he's leaving his girlfriend Maggie Chung behind. She's gonna stay at home and stay out of trouble while he goes off on this dangerous mission that he can't tell her about, and team up with Inspector Jessica Yang, who is part of the Chinese police force, and they need to infiltrate this evil organization in order to get the head honcho. So Jackie Chan's character has to go like undercover and kind of assimilate with this drug trafficking group, and rescue one of their big head honchos out of a prison, and meet back up with the drug lord. And you know, it has all that humor in there. There's moments where like you think they're gonna get caught, and like Michelle Yeoh has to pretend to be like Jackie Chan's sister, and like they both get together into the mission and see how things go. And you have all those fantastic action sequences, and it all builds up to just another epic finale where like I guess like Jackie Chan is like hanging from a helicopter as he does. And there I think that like most of the end action takes place like on a moving train. And I thought it was really fantastic. It's not only great martial arts action, but it's very funny too, and that was something that the first Police Story was very good at as well.
Yeah.
I I I think like some part of me is like Jackie Chan must have learned from like these great silent comedians like Charlie Chaplin or Harold Lloyd, or you know, guys like that who were really all about doing their physical comedy without using their voice, because that's what they had to do. And I think in that way he's a really talented performer.
Yeah, he definitely feels like somebody more akin to like those guys than like the 80s action stars that were like becoming so huge in Hollywood, like the Stallones and the Schwarzeneggers. And he really does feel like the modern incarnation of somebody like a Harold Lloyd, where he is just throwing himself fully into the physicality of every single one of these things, but also doing it in a way where like you're watching the Police Story movie and like it's unreal that he doesn't even break character, and like he is able to still be like so funny and have like such like an elastic physicality with like a grin on his face, or like a scared look on his face, but not a scared look like this is an actor realizing that he's about to die, but like a guy remaining in character the entire time. Like it's really incredible to watch the stuff that he does. And like you said, like the ending shows sort of like the bloopers or like unused takes of the stunts. You really just see like that these people are just really doing all of these things. It's incredible. I mean, I would much rather watch any of this stuff than the vast majority of action movies being made today, where like they're cut to hell, so you can't even tell what's going on half the time. But then other times it's very clear, a lot of digital effects being put in to ensure everybody's safety, and that's great, keep people safe and stuff. But I mean, this stuff, you really feel like these people are about to die. It's
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like a lot been said about the first Police Story stunt where like Jackie Chan's going down this pole in the middle of a mall and he's like getting electrocuted while he's doing it, and it's just like absolutely madness. I mean, luckily in these Hong Kong films, I looked it up because I was very interested, but like they use a type of thing like they call it like candy glass that they make their
Yeah.
they make their glass out of some kind of like candy material or something like that, because they just like they're always flying through glass and you're
There's
like,
so much glass being destroyed in all of these movies. It's like they go out of their way to figure out like ways to put glass where nobody else would ever think to even put glass, just so they can throw a body fully through it. It's yeah, watching the amount of glass shattering. It's like gotten to a point where I've been watching them with my partner, and where like I just like crack up every time like glass gets broken, because it's just like it's so funny. Like if the worst drinking game you could ever play would be to watch any of these movies and like take a shot like anytime a plate of glass gets shattered, you would be absolutely obliterated within 20 minutes.
all right. So Michelle Yeoh continues with her career. She has before we go to our next movie, she made her big Hollywood debut with Tomorrow Never Dies, and that's probably where most Americans became familiar with her work, and she certainly showcases a lot of what made her famous, with having to do stunts in that movie, as well as being a very capable leading lady. Um, but right before she appeared in Tomorrow Never Dies in 1997, she appeared in this film called The Heroic Trio, which Mitchell took in the other day, and I started watching, and it's quite the film. I won't steal your thunder, Mitchell, because I see that you really liked it according to your Letterboxd review.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the best movies that I've watched so far this year. It is nuts. um, it, the heroic trio of the title, they're all basically like superheroes. Michelle Yeoh plays an invisible woman. Maggie Chung plays she calls herself the thief snatcher, the thief catcher, and then Anita Moy is a character that's just called Wonder Woman. And they all have these like heightened abilities to kick ass, like fly around, and it's basically like it takes place in this weird sort of like steampunky, like it almost feels like the Gotham of like Tim Burton's Batman movies. And there is a like this nefarious master living in this cave underground who raised these three women, and Michelle Yeoh is still sort of under his spell. The other two have kind of gotten away and are trying, the other two are fighting for good now. Michelle Yeoh's kind of like still under his spell, fighting for evil in a sense, and she's going around stealing babies for the master so that the master can raise them to be like him and go about fulfilling his evil missions and everything. And the mission, occurs for the women to try and stop this from happening. And it basically is like the best superhero movie you could ever see. Like, this is what I wish every single Marvel movie could be. The amount of like energy and personality in it is so electric and infectious. Like, I want to watch this movie like immediately. I watched it the other night. I want to watch it again right away. The world that it builds, the costumes, like Michelle Yeoh is wearing this like red latex bodysuit the entire time. Maggie Chung is like motorcycle, like badass biker chick with like leather like strapped on, like, and it's just the fight scenes are so phenomenal. They're throwing knives at each other, they're dodging them, they're trying to save babies. Not all the babies get saved. The spoiler alert, some babies die in this movie. That's pretty crazy. And like people get beheaded. It's like a bonkers movie. Everybody should check this out immediately.
Yeah, this one was directed by Johnny To, and he's probably best known for his films like Drug War and Election. But I guess the Heroic Trio is up there as well.
Yeah, it's very different than like something like those, or like Throwdown, like his more like straight down the middle kind of like crime movies, which are really like electric and exciting too. But the Heroic Trio is, yeah, I mean, it's unreal.
I love Johnny To. I have not seen these movies, so they are going to be very high on my to watch list.
Yes, John. I hope that you've enjoyed this preview of Heroic Trio. So, John, let's bring you in here. I was if I remember correctly, Tomorrow Never Dies was that your second Bond film? Because I think World Is Not Enough was your first.
Yeah, World Is Not Enough was my first, and then I went backwards to the Brosnans before. Yeah, at that point, I don't remember if I watched GoldenEye or Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah, in what order, but those would have been my next two.
Yeah, because I imagine for you too, you would probably say that was your first introduction to Michelle Yeoh, right?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And, I like Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it's a lot of fun. I love that Jonathan Pryce is playing like a super crazy Rupert Murdoch type character. He's just absolutely hamming it up. And then Michelle Yeoh is like, definitely the most like physical of the Bond women characters up to that point, probably since. I mean, they've kind of run that type of character back a few times in terms of a foreign agent of another government, that teams up with Bond, from Halle Berry, which was actually really funny to see her helping to give out Best Actress. It's like, oh my gosh, this is two Brosnan Bond women.
Yeah, so if we take a moment and go back to the 80s after we've gone up to Tomorrow Never Dies, in order to get like our two other movies on this list, we had to go back to 86 and 87, where Magnificent Warriors, also known as Dynamite Fighters on IMDb, takes place. And this one I was really looking forward to seeing on the Criterion Channel. Another one that recently had a Blu-ray release here in the States by 88 Films, and it is a headline starring Michelle Yeoh feature where it's basically it takes place in like the 1930s during the Second Sino-Japanese War, and Michelle Yeoh plays a Chinese secret agent named Ming Ming, who has to go to this town or village and oversee this corruption that's happening by the Japanese coming in and trying to control the region. And in order to do that, she's going to have to team up with another special agent that's in the mist there. And of course, this movie has its humor too, and that comes in the point of when she's supposed to meet up with a special agent, she instead gets mixed up with a common everyday drifter. and the Drifter kind of plays along and pretends he's the secret agent for a little bit, but then when he learns what he's getting into, he doesn't really want to get involved anymore. Too bad, he's in the movie. um so then Michelle Yeoh meets up with the actual secret agent, and they meet up with a gentleman that they're trying to rescue, and this other young woman, and the five of them kind of form this strange alliance against the Japanese. And it's just a lot of fun, right? Like at the beginning of the movie, Michelle Yeoh is like doing her terrific action sequences, and she has like this like bullwhip or something that she uses in her action, where like she's just like lassoing her enemies and like bringing them close, or like tying them up so she can attack. And it's just like a really novel weapon to use in a movie like this. To bring in one of her future movies, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, certainly she is well versed in using multiple different weapons in her combat training, and this is just another one to her arsenal. And just altogether, it's just a really fun movie. This one definitely follows Mitchell's earlier saying that like the plot is probably less important than the action that's going on the screen here. There's a I think like maybe it's like 2/3 through the film where like our lead characters are trying to uh, get some fuel to escape the village, and they end up in a situation where they're trying to escape their enemies, and it's like this fantastic like hybrid fighting chase sequence, escape sequence, where like they're just driving through like this burning camp and everything like that. And um if I'm selling you on this movie, just know that it's really another fantastic action movie. And I think that's what a lot of this category and these early Michelle Yeoh films are known for, is just her physical abilities and talents on the screen, and showcasing a lot of her early 10-15 years in Hollywood. And would you say, Mitchell, that Royal Warriors, the sequel to Yes Madam, is a more fully featured Michelle Yeoh performance, or does she take a back seat again?
No, yeah, I would say that Royal Warriors feels more like she is the prominent like figurehead of it. It's also directed by David Chung, who directed Magnificent Warriors, that you were just talking about, but they're not related at all. The two films, even with warriors at the end of each one. And even as like Royal Warriors is in the second movie in the Line of Duty series that Yes Madam is like the first movie in, but they're not like connected at all. Like it's more like a thematic sort of series. They're not like narratively. She's not playing the same character or anything, but she is again, a police woman in this one, and she links up with an air security man and played by Michael Wong, and another police officer played by a very young Hiroyuki Sanada, who is leaving the police force to go be happy and live with his wife and his kid. And we all know how well that ends when a character in a movie is planning to leave the police. And they all just happen to be on the same flight together, and it's a flight where a mob prisoner is getting transported from Tokyo to Hong Kong, and somebody tries to hijack the plane to free this mob prisoner. And the three of them, all being in various forms of law enforcement, step in. Some shenanigans go down, things don't go well for the bad guys, but then it turns out that these bad guys have like blood brothers that they linked up with in the war and are bonded for life with, and those guys are not happy about what happened to their friends on the plane. And so then it basically becomes like a revenge movie for those guys who now want to kill these three law enforcement officers. And I think that's kind of like a fun entry point into a movie like this, where the movie has all three of these folks like on their heels the entire time, because they're the ones getting it's kind of like the Denzel Washington movie Ricochet, where like he does something to prevent a crime at the beginning, and then kind of ends up having to regret it because now this person has this grudge against him and they're attacking him the entire movie. So he's not even trying to like stop, or these three aren't even trying to like stop a crime from happening. They're basically trying to stop these people who are trying to murder them in very elaborate, maniacal ways. And it is like more than yes, madam. I think the action runs pretty fluidly through the movie. Like there's definitely plotting every now and then, and like this other stuff, it gets a little bit tedious to plotting because it's very like boilerplate plotting, but there's really dynamic, exciting action scenes peppered throughout the whole thing. The sequence on the plane is like one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. I was watching it with my partner, and like every like 5 seconds, like every moment during that scene, we were like shouting and screaming because like we couldn't believe the stuff that we were seeing. It was like frightening. But in a very, very fun and exciting way. Um, and yeah, there's just like other sequences throughout. The climax involves like a futuristic, like brutalist looking tank thing that Michelle Yeoh is driving to try and save this coffin with a person in it that's dangling from great heights, and there's like she's wielding a chainsaw and fighting the villain. It's like the stuff that they come up with is absolutely out of control. But I think, yeah, it's a real treat to watch. I highly recommend Royal Warriors as well. And I haven't seen Magnificent Warriors yet, but I'm very excited to see it. Especially like that one feels like it has an interesting sort of aesthetic to it as well, with it being set in the time period that it's set in, and her being more of like an adventurer and everything. So I'm really excited to check out that one out as well. But Royal Warriors, yeah, rules.
Yeah, I it's funny that we were talking about like some of these things where it looks like someone who is being attacked from all angles. And Mitchell, I kind of have a hard time separating from my mind right now is the John Wick franchise, and certainly with that coming out, and certainly it owes a lot to these old martial arts
Yeah,
films.
I think that's a perfect comparison point, where a lot of the excitement of John Wick is like, especially the second and especially the third one. I haven't seen the fourth yet, but like it's just watching this dude who, like, you're just trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this, because anytime he turns a corner, there's somebody trying to kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. John, can we bring you back?
I'm here.
Okay. I know you've been a little quiet because knowing about these early Michelle Yeoh films and writing them down to make sure you catch up with them yourself.
I've got a handy list here.
Oh, good. But yeah, Michelle Yeoh has been working for quite a few decades now. She did a lot of genre work in the last bunch of years, continuing her also action star work. You can see her in, I'm sure you've seen her in films like Shang-Chi, if you're a Marvel fan, or I guess she was in Star Trek Discovery for a little while, so she was doing science fiction. I think like outside of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, her most like forward facing or popular role was more recently with the Crazy Rich Asians, and how that just like blew up, and everyone maybe remembered how great Michelle Yeoh can be. Thankfully, she got another fantastic opportunity to showcase her ability with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and showcased just how talented she is, and how versatile she's been over the almost 4 decades that she's been working.
I had seen a lot of interviews that she had done over the course of the year, helping to promote Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I know in a number of occasions she would remark that basically, like, I got this script and it just made me cry thinking about, it's like it's a role that like I've been waiting my whole life for, something that like I can really sink my teeth into and show all the different like pieces of me basically as an actor. And that really kind of spoke to me. And I think you're highlighting all these different pieces over the course of her career in all these various movies. But she is, you're right, a very unique actress, and somebody who's can speak to everyone, I think, over the course of the movies you talked about. There's a little something there for everybody, even though I haven't seen them all. I understand that, every type of movie watcher can appreciate at least one or two of these.
Mitchell, do you have anything to add about Michelle Yeoh's career, or maybe you've become more impressed with her work now that you're jumping into some of her older films more?
Yeah, I think that like this earlier stuff has always been stuff that's been like on my watch list for a while. Like Yes Madam, especially, in the Heroic Trio, have been on my watch list for like years because I've heard people hyping them up. Super Cop as well, which I'm excited to finally watch soon. And but it's been one of those things where like I've always just I'll get around, like I want to see that at some point and just haven't had like the thing to motivate me to finally start watching them. And so I'm really happy to have this new collection on Criterion Channel to give me that push, especially combined with loving her performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once, to give that push to finally be watching these earlier films of hers, because I'm really blown away. I mean, this is like some of the coolest action that I've ever seen, and has definitely given me like one of those things where you kind of know that like she rules, and like obviously people are hyping this stuff up. You see clips on Twitter or whatever, and it's like, oh, that looks like rad as hell, like she's a badass. But then you actually go and watch the stuff, and it's like, oh, she is a badass. Like it's really next level. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely given me a deeper appreciation for the sort of entirety of her career, which is really nice to see. And I think it gives me an even greater appreciation for her getting to do what she did in Everything Everywhere All at Once, where she's able to use like every facet of what she can bring as an actor, emotionally and physically.
All right. Well, it looks like we've come to the natural end of our Michelle Yeoh conversation. Again, you can catch a lot of these movies right now on the Criterion Channel. Um, if if you've never seen some of her major works like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or Crazy Rich Asians, or now Everything Everywhere All at Once, I certainly would highly suggest those as well. But John, let's get into how people can find us.
I gave you the MC mantle. You have to formally give it back.
Oh, I had to give it back.
Yeah.
John, you are now the MC.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Let's let everyone know how they can follow us. We're on Twitter at It's the Pick Pod, and Max, you're at
MH Colville.
Mitchell, are you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at It Is Mitchell.
It is Mitchell. Great. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to tell people, where they can follow you?
Yeah, I mean, you could follow me on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/Mitchell. I post on there plenty, as I should.
You do the podcast too, right? Is that something that people can listen to?
Oh yeah, thank you very much. That's the thing that I should have said myself. Yeah, the Letterboxd Show is a podcast. We have a few. It's like one feed where we have a few different sort of categories of shows, and we had a series of shows called Best in Show that was covering like the award season that is wrapping up now, thankfully. I wasn't really on any of those. I'm not, as I said, a big like award season person, so I wasn't really doing that stuff. But I do co-host our Weekend Watch List podcast, which comes out every Thursdays, where myself and my two co-hosts talk about the new releases, the last week's releases, how they're being received on Letterboxd, etc. And then our main show, which is now coming back. The Best in Show is over. Our main show is called Four Faves, where we bring a guest on to talk about their four favorite movies. Sometimes it's like a popular Letterboxd member or critic. Sometimes it's a filmmaker, like we had James Gray, Ty West on last year before we sort of wrapped up the season for the award season stuff. So we'll be having filmmakers like that on. I co-host some of those episodes. So yeah, I would very much appreciate if people wanted to check those out.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Very cool. You can also listen to our podcast if you aren't already. You can subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts or any other podcatching app. Just search for It's the Pictures, and while you're there, please leave us a review. 5 stars will help other people discover and enjoy the show. You can send us an email at itsthepictures@gmail.com with your thoughts on the Oscars, your thoughts on Michelle Yeoh, your thoughts on whatever is on your mind. And you can follow us on Letterboxd as well. Search for It's the Pictures there, see what we've been watching lately, our lists, etc. And the Substack newsletter, itsthepictures.substack.com. Max, what are you writing about lately?
Yeah, I just wrote a lengthy review on Creed 3, as well as a look at the recent Warner Brothers release of the Rocky Complete Collection, or I think a definitive collection, how they say. It only has films 1 through 4, so it's not really complete. But they're all available there in HD for the first time, and that's pretty exciting. And you can catch those thoughts at the Substack.
Did I forget anything? Because it's been a little while.
No, I think we're good with the promotion.
All right, beautiful. Should we do a quick what we've been watching?
I want to hear what you going on, because do not have too much more to say about Creed 3.
Fair enough. Well, I'll go first because I actually watched a Michelle Yeoh movie recently that we didn't talk about on the segment, which is Danny Boyle's Sunshine. And I haven't been super great at keeping up with the Danny Boyle series on Blank Check. Not as good as I normally do. And a lot of his earlier movies are blind spots for me. So I was kind of excited. Well, they haven't covered Sunshine yet. I think it's next week, but I'm excited to get to it, and kind of everything after that is familiar enough for me. I think I can listen without watching along. But Sunshine's awesome. I remember seeing this movie in the theaters in 2007. It came out in the summertime. I think it was late summer, and it just sort of blew me away. It's takes place in like the relatively near future, probably like 10 years from now. And the sun is like about to explode and die out, and we send this mission up there to basically blow it up with a nuke in order to sort of restart it, which just is a great premise for a movie. And it's got an awesome cast. I mentioned Michelle Yeoh. She's the resident botanist on board, so she's got an oxygen garden full of plants that are sort of helping them, sustain life on this very lengthy trip. Also, really strong cast. Outside of her, Cillian Murphy's kind of the main character, and he's a physicist on board. Rose Byrne, Chris Evans, and they all have really great like mid 2000s like kind of emo-y haircuts. I really enjoy it. So I recommend it for that. Hiroyuki Sanada, who I think you mentioned earlier, is the captain of the ship, and he's really great as well. It is a really interesting mix of genres, I think, and I think a lot of people will kind of like crap on the final act, and the genre places that it goes to, but I feel like it celebrates so many different types of movies, and it kind of pulls them all off that I appreciate it still, even though I don't think it's as strong as the preceding hour or so. If you haven't seen this movie, and I think it kind of flew under the radar when it was released initially, I think it's been claimed by a lot of cinephiles since, but it's definitely one of Danny Boyle's best movies. It was written by Alex Garland, who would go on to make a lot of great sci-fi movies himself as both a writer and a director. And I'm a big fan. Either of you seen Sunshine? Thoughts?
Mitchell?
I saw it in theaters when it came out, and I am one of those people who sort of craps on the final act. But honestly, like it's one of those ones that I saw in theaters, really liked it leading up into the final act, and then didn't like the turn that it took. But that's the last time that I saw it, and I know, as you mentioned, that like people have really, not even so much reappraised, but have just really been beating the drum for it really hard over the years since it came out, and like beating it harder and harder and harder. And it's been making me want, especially with the Blank Check series going on now, like really want to give it another shot, because maybe knowing where it goes will allow me to kind of appreciate the whole of it more than being like surprised by where it goes and maybe feeling that a little bit of like disappointment. Maybe I can like actually just appreciate where it goes, knowing like leading into it. And it really is like a nice time capsule of that 2007 era of movies where like like a sort of indie-ish like sci-fi movie could have the kind of scale that it does and the personality that it does, and this really top tier like stellar cast of actors on it who are like all super awesome actors that you wouldn't expect to see in a movie like this,
totally.
and are probably all mostly doing like TV stuff now these days, because like actors of that caliber are really getting big roles in big movies like that. So yeah, I really want to revisit. I've been wanting to revisit it for a while. So I think with the Yeoh going on and with the Boyle series on Blank Check going on, I think it's a perfect time for me to give it another go.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what I'll say about the ending, not the ending specifically, but sort of the final third or so of the movie, is that like it still is like a mildly disappointing conclusion to the story that is set up so well in the first 2/3 of the movie, but like in a vacuum, it's like really great, just horror filmmaking.
Yeah.
And so like I can kind of like appreciate that aspect to it, is where it's just like this is just really good stuff, even though it's not like the direction I wanted this story to go. But yeah, I think it is, like you said, a good time to reevaluate, or just give it another look. And yeah, the other thing I'll say about it is like, if you didn't get to see it in theaters in 2007, I'm sorry, because it's not going to be like as just gigantic as it was at that time. And I remember walking out of the theater and just being like, yeah, it was still sunshine. It's coming down. I'm just like, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a very like I have nostalgia for seeing a movie like that in theaters.
Me too, for sure. And you recapture it by rewatching it a little bit, but you can't get the same experience.
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, thanks Tom Cruise for saving that for future generations. Mitchell, do you have something that you've seen?
John, let me jump in here for a quick second, because I have something to say.
Oh yeah. I didn't give you a chance to weigh in on Sunshine.
Yeah, what you said about like seeing a movie and then feeling the outside, that's kind of how I felt about Day After Tomorrow. And we've had an episode about Day After Tomorrow on the podcast with our disaster movie stuff, and yeah, that was fun. But Sunshine, I mostly agree with your guys, the two of you opinion. I like a lot of the movie up until that finale. I think that I really love the science that it uses, and think that that's really forward thinking. We've seen a lot of other science fiction stories use elements from that, and I don't necessarily believe that that was the first to do it, but it was certainly successful in the way that it was portrayed on the screen, and I really appreciate the care that went into that and the forethought. And it's probably one of my favorite Danny Boyle films, honestly. I although some of his films are hit and miss, the less said about like Yesterday, the better. But yeah, I think that Sunshine's pretty great, and I don't know. I think that John, we watched it too because he's a big Blank Check fan. But I don't know when I'll watch it again, but I am fond of it.
One of my favorite like just little elements of it, if this intrigues anybody, is like one of the first scenes on the ship, and the ship like looks so cool because it's got this like big shield and everything important is kind of hiding behind it, being blocked out by the sun. But Cliff Curtis, who's in the movie and is really good in kind of a smaller part, he's like obsessed with the sun, and he's like in this room where you can observe it, and he's like, open up the blinds or whatever to the ship's a talking AI computer, and it does, and he's like, oh, this is amazing, what's the brightness level? And it's like 2%. And he's like, go to 4, and they're like, this will burn out your retinas in like 0.2 seconds. So I that was just like a fun little moment that kind of I think sets the scene really well for just like how gigantic and overwhelming the whole premise is. But yeah, Mitchell, something that you've watched recently you wanted to shout out?
Yeah, I want to shout out a recent movie that I was quite intrigued by and excited to see, and I finally watched it because it's available on like digital now for rental and purchase. I paid $20 to rent the film 80 for Brady. Which, if people don't know, it's about a quartet of elderly, ladies: Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field, who they bonded years ago over when Lily Tomlin's character was going through chemo, trying to beat cancer. They bonded over like one day they were taking care of her and they couldn't change the channel on the TV, and then a sports game, a football game came on, and Tom Brady was on it, and they were enraptured by Tom Brady, and then they became obsessed with following Tom Brady's career. This is a period piece. It takes place in 2017 when he was still playing for the Patriots, and so they like make a pact. They want to try to go to the Super Bowl because they're playing the Falcons in the Super Bowl this year, and they get the tickets and they go, and it's basically like a road trip movie of them getting to the Super Bowl to go see Tom Brady play, and it's one of the strangest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I just remember vividly like the day I had never heard of this movie until the poster hit my inbox, like a press email came into my inbox with the poster, and it's such a weird poster, like the most like horrendously photoshopped poster where like it is clearly not like it's just the four of them, and like it's clearly not their bodies, like their heads are just photoshopped onto the four random women's bodies, and I was very intrigued by that and couldn't believe that it was a real movie. I still can't believe that it's a real movie. Tom Brady is in the movie, like acting. He is performing in the movie. There's a scene where Lily Tomlin is like giving a whole monologue to him, and it's like one of the most like uncanny valley things I think I've ever seen. Him just like staring off into like nowhere, pretending like he's listening to her. And it's it's so odd. It's like an SNL sketch like made into a full movie that is done with complete and utter like earnestness. There is not like a millisecond of like satire and this at all. It's played very straight. I mean, it's a comedy, but it's played very straightforward. And it's I honestly like I genuinely had a fun time with it. I don't know if that's partly just from like the ridiculousness of what this is, maybe partly just the appeal of seeing Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field in a movie together and like all being the leads and like just getting to, do their thing. It feels more like respectful towards them than something like Las Vegas, feels, which is sort of like a similar thing, just with like, older men but that's like them trying to do like a hangover, like very like debaucherous, like raunchy sort of comedy, and it just feels weird. Like LMFA, the guy from LMFAO like teabags Robert De Niro in that movie, and that just that's tough to watch. But 80 for Brady, like I genuinely had a nice time with it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I think it's a very pleasant movie to watch. I watched it before bed and it's used me to sleep. Have either of you guys seen 80 for Brady? Are you interested at all in 80 for Brady?
I haven't. Go ahead.
I love that you brought this to the show.
That's what you get when you invite Mitchell Beaupre onto your podcast.
Because I've been a Patriots fan my whole life, and
Rhode Island, yeah.
I have not seen 80 for Brady yet, and John and I have talked about it a few times, but I love that like you stumbled upon this and told us your viewpoint, because that was everything.
I haven't seen it. I'm definitely going to see it. Some of my really good friends and I have like this weird love of the movie Draft Day, which is another kind of like bizarre football movie. And as soon as we saw this, it was like, okay, like we need to all watch this together, and we just haven't really found the time to do so. But I also had this idea, which I wish in hindsight I pitched someplace where it was going to be like a 240 for Brady, and you go and see this movie like 3 times consecutively and just kind of diary the mind melt that inevitably is going to happen.
I would do that. I would honestly do it.
Yeah, I never got around to it. We'll see. Maybe I'll still do it someday if I have like a really boring Saturday.
You can write it for the Substack, John.
I also maybe okay. I feel like I want to get paid if I'm gonna do that. But yeah, I hope they make a sequel, because the following Super Bowl, Max, was one I remember fondly.
No, I don't like that one.
I'm in Philly, so that was the Eagles Patriots Super Bowl after the Falcons come back. But But cool. No, that was great. Really appreciate the 80 for Brady shout out. Max, anything? I know you mentioned Creed 3s in the newsletter. Anything else you wanted to add before we go?
Yeah, I'll just talk about it here on the show a little bit and just share that I was really down in the dumps on Creed 2 because it very much felt like a sequel to Rocky 4, which is a fine Rocky movie. I was very hesitant about Creed 3 because the lack of Stallone in the movie, and it just felt like a betrayal of what I love about those movies. It's still very much a Rocky film, from the boxer saying that he's going to enjoy retirement to something bringing him out of his slumber and making him go through a training montage again so he can go through a 12-round fight to the ultimate finish type of movie. It very much follows that established formula to its, to it, I guess its detriment a little bit. I mean, I still like the movie and still recommended it, but I guess I have series fatigue. Maybe that was like overshadowed by the joy of seeing the change happen with Creed, with Michael B. Jordan joining the franchise and that transition, and that really gave life to the series. But now, like, after seeing like 8 of these, is that no, this is the 9th Rocky movie. It's a pretty established formula, and given that Creed 3 actually had like the best opening and like has made the most money out of the Rocky movies, I think we're definitely getting Creed 4, whatever that looks like. So I'm weary about that, but this one is successful because Jonathan Majors addition to the series is great. He's such a fantastic actor. He brings such a I think I said like an energy or like a presence to the movie season that he could literally just like be standing in the corner and you're like, oh shit, it's it's Jonathan Majors. And I think that's really phenomenal addition to this franchise and movie. And I'd like to see both of their continued work, whether together or apart.
Cool. All right. So I think that is going to do it for us this week. Mitchell, thank you so much for joining. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a great time.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.